I have seen, I think, 2 of the Halloween films. And as a horror fan, a horror addict, I'm a little bit ashamed of that. So, one of my missions this year is to watch at least some more of them. I'm not going to commit to watching all of them until I see how I feel the further I get into them. There are quite a lot of them. I had, thankfully, seen the first film before. This was the 1978 release, of course, and it's been quite a while since I saw it, so I decided to rewatch it ahead of watching the second one, and I really enjoyed it. I think I certainly enjoyed it more because of how popular it's become, and what I mean by that is it's such a great classic that part of me is inclined to like it regardless. If I were to be watching this unaware of how popular it became or how it affected people or how it shaped certain kinds of horror films, I might not have liked it as much. And I think that's largely because it's quite slow. To begin with, it's fine. The last third of the film is fine, but I'd say the middle is really, really slow. And apart from a few suspenseful moments, basically apart from whenever we have things from Michael Myers' viewpoint, it's kind of slow. But other than that, I can see why it became so popular and certainly now is arguably one of the most watched horror films of all time. I don't have statistics to back that up, but I'm pretty confident in that statement. This was, of course, directed by John Carpenter, written by Carpenter and Debra Hill, and it stars Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie. And Laurie is babysitting 2 children, and unbeknown to her, the killer, Michael Myers, of course, has escaped, and he keeps observing Laurie from a distance, and when he's observing her, we hear him, he's wearing a mask, and he's very much heavily breathing, and it's eerie to hear him breathing so heavily and watching her. There's one scene quite near the beginning, and this isn't really a spoiler for anything, where Laurie walks away and we see her walking off into the distance, and we're looking at her from Michael Myers' position, and the fact that she's unaware of him watching her in that particular moment is really creepy, because it makes me think any one of us could be in that situation where we don't know somebody is watching us. And I think that's one of the great things about this film. Well, I was going to say one of the great things is that it could happen. I don't mean I want this to happen in real life, but obviously this is a situation that could, in theory, happen, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's done very well. And obviously there are a lot of similar films, copycat films, films that provide something of a similar nature, and even films that are completely fresh but offer a sense of reality, I think are so much scarier than films about the paranormal, for example. And Michael Myers is a sinister character, and we don't know that much about him. We do know why he went to prison. I don't want to spoil it, just in case you don't know. It is the first scene of the film, so it's not really a spoiler, but I think going into it, I didn't expect that to be the case. So I won't give away too much, but we basically know why he was in prison, and we know he's dangerous, but we don't know that much about him. And that is often unusual with this, well, with any kind of horror. Usually we have various characters and we know their backgrounds and their family members, and then you try and work out which one is the killer because we know from the beginning who the antagonist is, who the villain is. It's a very different experience. And obviously this isn't the only film like that. I'm not trying to say that this film does something no other film does, but it's certainly something that I think is worthy of praise. The treatment of the character of Michael Myers is really effective and really sinister. And he's played by Tony Moran. And Laurie as a character is absolutely fine. Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic. The character of Laurie, I haven't taken to. I don't dislike her. I absolutely do not dislike her. But I haven't fallen in love with the character yet. Maybe I will in time. But for now, I don't mind the character. And maybe if I watch the film again, it'll be a different experience, because I don't remember how I felt about the character the first time I watched it. I think the first time I saw it, obviously the whole thing was new to me, so I was trying to absorb everything. Watching it this second time, I could focus on other things, and something that really stood out to me, and this is no surprise, it's the music. The music and the sound effects are absolutely incredible. Whenever Myers is watching Laurie, sometimes we have silence, sometimes it's the heavy breathing, sometimes we'll have quite a high-pitched sound. It varies, but it's like throughout the film, the horror moments kind of have slightly different things in them depending on the vibe they're going with, but it is incredible. No matter what they go with, it's fantastic. It's really well done. It's not there's not a lot of bloodshed in it. It's not a gory film, but it is a very intense film, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously, I'm not going to say what happens with Myers or whether he kills anybody or what happens with Laurie. I'm assuming most people know roughly what happens, but I won't give away anything too much, but it is really great. As I said, it is a little slow, so it's not perfect, but it's one of those films where I think it's quite easy to analyse. Because it's not action after action after action, it is a film where you can kind of take your time watching it and analyse it a lot more, and that's what I was doing with this second viewing. Because I was already aware of the story and what happened with the characters, I was able to dissect things a little bit more and pay attention to things that I perhaps wouldn't have done the first time. And I liked it a lot. I'm definitely looking forward to the second film. I'm not jumping to see it. It's not one of those films where I absolutely have to see it and I'm head over heels in love with the series. That's not happened yet, but it might. Also, I should point out, I don't think it's a very scary film. Not when I'm sitting in the house with the lights on, watching it on my laptop on Netflix. It's not that scary. Maybe if it was in the cinema or if I had the lights off, quite possibly. But there are some films that can scare me even when I'm in this situation. So definitely not the scariest film, but for the time, absolutely, yeah, I can see that being the case. But the music definitely makes it very atmospheric. All things considered, Halloween is a good film. I can see why it's become so popular. I enjoyed watching it the second time. It was a slightly different viewing experience, and I'm not desperate to see the second, but it is on my list, and I will get round to it probably sooner rather than later.